Hey everyone, welcome back to Unorthodox Cricket. Now overnight saw the end of the first Ashes test between England and Australia for 2019. Australia comfortably winning by 251 runs. Now going into day 5, it was pretty clear it was always going to be a tough ask for the English. Set 397 to win. They were never really going to chase it down, so the aim of the day was survival, which they just couldn't manage whatsoever. Things didn't start particularly well for the English. They lost Rory Burns early, and then the likes of Jason Roy and co fell pretty quickly. Now, really disappointing from Jason Roy. I think, as you all saw with his dismissal, charging down the track on a turning wicket and trying to belt Nathan Lyon over cow corner for 6. Probably not the best look as a new opener when you're trying to bat out a day. Now, I understand the intent to a degree, trying to put the pressure back on Lyon, but when the ball's ragging that much, you're batting for survival, just sit back and defend. Runs mean nothing. I don't think Lyon would care if you hit him for 6. He'll let you charge all day because each time you do it brings such an element of risk. I think it was a rookie mistake from Roy. And yeah, he really just couldn't contain his one-day game. At best, he was hitting that for 6. And I don't think the Australians would have let up any pressure anyway. So really didn't think that one through. And that's going to be huge going throughout the series, whether or not Jason Roy can actually stand up to international test match opening. So the story of the day was Nathan Lyon, absolutely fantastic. He was always going to be so hard to play on that day 5 wicket. He ended up with figures of 6 for 49, simply incredible. Some balls that he bowled were just unplayable. It was always going to be a nightmare for those left-handers and not much easier for those right-handers, as you saw inside edges to that guy at short leg. So that was always going to be a tough ask. I didn't think the English batsmen played too badly. Most of them got out to genuine good balls. However, Jason Roy was just awful. And Moeen Ali's just really continued his awful form. He didn't bowl well in this game. He batted particularly bad. And I have no doubt that his position in the team is under fire for the second test match. Now, to go along with Nathan Lyon's 6 for 49 was Pat Cummins at the other end, who picked up 4 for 32. He just does what he does. He just hits that line in length time after time, and you really can't argue with his performance. I think the Australian seamers performed particularly well across this test match. However, they did seem to miss Mitchell Starc, just a bit of extra firepower and swing. Patterson did bowl well in the first innings, but I think Starc may come in for the second test match in place of him. But the story of this match was really Steyn Smith. Twin 140s after coming back from his ban, and just incredible batting. It was something that no one else could really replicate. Outside of him, there was Matthew Wade who turned up, who played really well, but Steve Smith really just does look in a class of his own. In my opinion, he's definitely the number 1 test match batsman in the world, without question, and it's going to be really interesting if he can keep putting up these big numbers right throughout this Ashes series. Outside of Steyn Smith, there were a couple of performances throughout this match that stood out. Stuart Broad's 5 for 86 in the first innings, having Australia 122 for 8. England really missed a trick there. That was their chance to really seal the game up. However, Steve Smith got away, and that really put them on the back foot early on. Rory Burns, English will be happy to see that an opener's come in and scored some runs. It was a bit ugly, however, he did fight, and he showed a little bit more potential in the second innings. He looks like he could be a good player. He's just really got to know his own game and play well within himself. Stokes and Root clearly look like the best English batsmen for me. Both scored 50 in the first innings. Root looked good in the seconds. And Stokes is just carrying on from his World Cup really. So they're the real core of the English batting at the moment. They're really going to need guys like Joss Buttler, Johnny Bairstow and guys like Jason Roy to stand up if they're going to have any chance throughout the series. I think the English will probably stick with Roy for the rest of the series potentially. It's pretty rough to drop him after a couple games, but Roy's really going to have to work hard on his game, either being really aggressive on a flat wicket, or if it's not so flat, bringing his game in a bit and playing within himself. But it'll be interesting to see where his career goes from here. Matthew Wade, 110 on comeback, very happy for him. He worked so hard to get back there, and he played a great innings, and that really set up the Australians to go and bowl on late days 4 and early day 5. And then obviously wrapping the game up, Nathan Lyon, fantastic, 6 for 49, Pat Cummins, 3 for 32. You couldn't ask too much more. It was always going to be tough for the English, and yeah, it just was too much. You can't be chasing that sort of figure on day 5. And yeah, guys like Jason Roy will really be questioning this shot selection. But I really think this sets up the rest of the Ashes for a really good series. I think the English will come back a lot stronger. They very much had the game early on. If they could have taken those 2 late wickets on day one, it would have been a much different story. They're really going to want more from Roy, Bairstow, Butler. I think Ali's probably going to go. Who they bring in is another question. They've got a couple of different options there. Leach, Adil Rashid. Don Bess is a guy who was given the spinning role for a bit, and he can also hold a bat, so he's another potential. But something definitely has to change within that English lineup. I'm not sold on Joe Denley either, so there's quite a lot of batting worries there. Obviously missing Jimmy Anderson, who knows how long he's going to be out for. But the stress of losing Anderson early on was obviously another huge factor in this game. So Australia go 1-0 up in this Ashes series. I'm really hoping England can fight back, and I'm sure they will. There's definitely things to be worked on in that Australian lineup. There wasn't many runs coming at the top there, so that'll be interesting to see what they do there. But besides that, I think they're a pretty settled lineup. And moving forward, I think this is going to be a fantastic Ashes series. And just another cricketing news, I see Dale Steyn's retired from Test match cricket, wanting to focus on the white ball stuff. Now for me, if I was him, I would have gone the other way around. I would have focused on Test match cricket and given away the white ball stuff. There's just so much young talent in that South African team, and he hasn't really played a hell of a lot of white ball cricket recently. For me, I would just try and push his Test match legacy and go as long as he can there. However, he probably doesn't have too much time remaining anyway. But Dale Steyn, fantastic bowler, just so dangerous in every aspect, but he alone demands a standalone video on him, so I'm not going to say too much in today's video, but what a player he's been, and it's going to be sad to no longer see him in the Test match arena. And just one more retirement in world cricket today. Brendan McCullum's announced his retirement from all formats of cricket. Obviously he'd given away international cricket a couple of years ago, but for me he's personally one of my heroes. Just the way he played his cricket, just so aggressive, dominated attacks and had no fear whatsoever. So it's going to be sad to see him no longer playing any cricket. But once again, he's a guy who deserves a standalone video on his fantastic career. But that's all for today, guys. Let me know in the comments if you think there are any potential changes to either of these teams going into the second Test match. Also, what you thought of Dale Steyn and Brendan McCullum's fantastic careers. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you again tomorrow.